Chair, we're now live.
Right, thank you very much. A warm welcome to those attending and to our viewers watching live on the Council's YouTube channel, Hillingdon, London. This is the meeting of the Finance and Corporate Services Select Committee. My name is Councillor John Riley and I'm the chairman of this meeting. Details of the business to be considered today are shown on the agenda, copies of which are available in the room and online under the live broadcast. For those present in the room and intended to speak, please note you will be filmed and any statements you make will be recorded and made public. A reminder to councillors, officers and those speaking today that you should turn the microphone button on when speaking. This will ensure you can be heard in the room and by those watching online. A bit of housekeeping. We're not expecting the fire drill, so if the alarm does go off, please follow Liz out through the fire exits and out of the building to the designated meeting point. Mobile and tablet devices, well, you can't recall what I've got a tablet, but never mind. For those in the room, please switch any mobile devices to silent before the meeting starts. Please note councillors on the committee may use their laptops or tablets during the meeting to view agenda paperwork. I'm going to try and do this digitally, but it probably won't go well. So I'm going to ask those present to identify themselves and just say hello for the meeting. We'll start with Liz and work our way around that way.
Liz Penny, Democratic Services Officer.
Councillor Stuart Mathers.
Councillor Raju Sansarpuri.
Councillor Narinda Garg.
I'm Matthew Woolbridge, I'm the Chief. I'm Matthew Woolbridge, I'm the Chief Digital and Information Officer.
Councillor Kishan Bhatt.
Councillor Kaushik Banerjee.
Councillor Wayne Bridges.
All right, thank you very much. So we go to the agenda and right, so start with apologies for absence.
No apologies this evening, Chair.
All right, that's very good. Usual declarations of interest in matters coming before the committee. Item 3, minutes of the previous meeting. We had a very good meeting last time and heard from Andy Goodwin and Marion Finney and Mary Stokes, and the minutes are set out there for all to see. Any comments on the minutes? Are they agreed? Thank you so much. All right. So to confirm that the items of business marked in Part 1 will be considered in public. I don't think there are any in Part 2, no. Part 2 would be in private, but we haven't got any of those. Right. Item number 5. So this is the highlight of the evening. Actually, it's 6. No, it's not. It's 5. Sorry? It's just a presentation. Yes. So this is about the Council's digital journey and resident member experience. And we have Matthew with us, who is relatively new to the Council, but not to this area of expertise by any means, because he is an expert in the area. And he's going to give us a presentation on the Council's digital journey and resident member experience. And so I will hand over to him, but don't forget to press your button so everyone can hear you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Committee, and thank you for inviting me to your committee as well to spend a bit of time looking at our digital journey. So, as I said before, I'm Matthew Woolbridge, I'm the Chief Digital and Information Officer, and I'm accountable in the Council for all things digital data, technology and customer experience, and have been here for about 6 months, in fact 6 months this week. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about where we want to go in terms of our digital journey and why do I do this role, more importantly, and why do I want to work in Hillingdon is I'm a massive believer in how digital data and technology are power for good in our society and how it can really improve people's lives. So my role is to understand how we can improve resident experience, how we can transform people's lives through the better use of digital data and technology. And our ambition, where we want to go, and some of this will be presented to the Cabinet next week about our investment over the next 3 years, is to make sure we've invested in digital data and technology and how we transform our organisation to become a digitally enabled, modern, well-run council. But what does that actually mean? We'll want to be digitally enabled as we do in our lives. So the council is no different than any other business or any other interactions you make with any organisation. You want it to be seamless, you want it to be easy, but you want it to meet your customer needs. But what does that actually mean for us as a council? This will result in an improved way the council delivers services to residents. So we want to drive up resident satisfaction. We want to enable residents to access services quickly, easily, and at their own convenience. So we're seen more as a 24/7 business and an organisation. People can do what they need to do when they need to do it. But also we want to be more efficient and effective in terms of what we do as officers. So we want to make sure we're modern, we want to make sure we're as efficient as possible, and we want to make sure we're productive. So that's our vision. By 2026 we want to get to this place. And we've got a bit of a way to go from where we are today. So that's about investing in the right things, having the right people skills, but also really understanding what our residents want from us as an organisation. So if we'd have done that over the next 3 years, what will that actually mean? So that's about delivering an even better resident experience. So that's when interacting with the council, making sure that our services are accessible, information's easily there for people that need it, but most importantly, residents will be able to carry out simple transactions quickly and easily. So it's resolved first time, they can do it in the way that they need to do it, recognising that most people in society want to use digitally enabled methods for interacting with the council, but there are people that still need to phone us up, that people still need our help, and people that are digitally excluded. But the vast majority of people can do things for themselves, and we want to balance that in the right way moving forward. And we want to make a more joined up approach as a council to make sure contact's easy and seamless as possible. So, for example, most residents have multiple needs. They're not necessarily coming and contacting us because they have a singular need. So they're often using multiple services. So a lot of people will be using more the discretionary environmental services, but the people that use our more statutory services, they're consuming social care, housing, revs and bends at the same time. So we want to make sure that's easily and seamless across the council. We also want happier and more efficient staff as well. So we want to give people the equipment, the learning, the development, the skills, so they can do their jobs most effectively, and they're focused on the high value tasks. So they're not doing lots of manual administration, they're doing things quickly and easily, so they can really support our residents in the best way possible. So we want to strip away some of those manual features, and I'll talk a bit about that later in the presentation. We also want to understand our residents in the best way possible. So we want to use our data in a much better way. So we're no different, again, than every organisation in the world. We host, and as a local authority, we have a lot of data about people. We have a lot of information, but we don't always use it in the best way possible to make the best decisions. So we want to join up our data the best way. Again, we understand our data and our residents quite a lot from a service by service by service by service perspective. We don't have a joined up view of how our residents and our households consume our services and how we can best support them. So we want to use modern technology to join up our data sets so we have better insights about people, and that will help us to make better decisions, so we continuously improve services and we can make better decisions as an organisation, and actually focus on what people need in the future, not what they need in the past, and focus on prevention rather than intervention. And what does this mean from a kind of financial perspective? Because we'll all be aware of the financial situation, all local government and all of the public sector in at the moment. We need a more sustainable financial model. So we need to use digital data and technology as an enabler to improve our services, so we can maintain or reduce costs of our services by making them more efficient and effective. So I have some principles about how we're guiding our work in terms of our digital journey and how we want to support residents and members. So we want to focus on meeting the needs of our residents, but particularly those who are most vulnerable, to focus our attention on the people that need our help the most. So we want to use research data to help to understand our borough in a better way than we do at the moment, and we want to be able to build and develop products and services that meet those needs. That's both about us more building products and services that we own as a council rather than buying those products, so we can change them, we can alter them, we can make sure that they meet residents' needs, and also recognising technology is moving on at pace. We need to make sure that we're altering our products and services on a regular basis, making the best use of technology. But fundamentally, we need to understand our residents in the way and help them design some of the services that they consume by working with residents, working with community groups to better design some of our services. We also want to make our services accessible for everybody, so we want to work to improve digital inclusion. So we recognise that there's a proportion of people out there in Hillingdon that can't access our services easily, that can't use technology as the vast majority of people can. So we want to rebalance our services. So we want to rebalance our contact centre and the way we do things at the moment to focus more on vulnerable people that need our help the most, to spend more time understanding those residents with multiple needs, and we want to channel shift the vast majority of residents who can do things themselves by having a more digitally enabled setup as a council, so our services are easily accessible, whether on your laptop, whether on a phone, whether it's 8 o'clock in the morning, whether it's at midnight, whether it's at 12 o'clock. We'll have a 24/7 way of accessing the council. And we want to make sure that we test all services to make sure they're simple, intuitive. So a big frustration for people is they're going on our website at the moment, they're not necessarily getting the answer they want straight away, or if they've put in a request, they can't see how that request is changing, what the update is. I mean, everyone will use the Amazon example of you'll get a regular update of what's happening with that thing you bought or that thing you want to do. Like with most services, as a council, we're not quite there. We have My Account, which you'll be able to access some of the information, but generally when you're going into the more complicated services, you'll probably go into a bit of a void where you'll make a request and you won't necessarily hear back, you won't necessarily see the progress. So we're doing a lot of work to make sure we simplify, make sure things are intuitive, but make sure they're also regular patterns. So when you're reporting something, when you're buying something where you need to be assessed, it's simple and easy to do with the council, and it's not as simple and as easy to do as we want it to be at the moment. So we've got some work to do on that. But we also want to support the people that are vulnerable to go online, so making sure that we support people out in our communities to either give them the connectivity, so make sure they've got the ability to go online, but also that they've got the devices and they've got the learning and development to make sure that they've got the skills or the kit to be able to go online. So again, rebalancing some of our investment onto the people that need our help the most. We also want to be, and this is more of a kind of how we do things within the council rather than the resident-focused way, is we want to make sure we're breaking down some of the silos within the organisation to make sure we're focused on research data and make sure we're working in multidisciplinary teams across the council to support our residents in the best way possible. And also we're working in an agile way to make sure we reduce bureaucracy, paperwork. So again, a big frustration. Again, people come into local government, officers come into local government, not because they want to do bureaucracy and paperwork, because they want to help people. We want to refocus our people to help people and not do the bureaucracy and paperwork. So we want to improve people's productivity, and we want to make sure we make better data-driven, evidence-based decision-making as an organisation by using that massive amount of data we have to drive the best decisions for us as an organisation. And on that, we want to collect data about residents to support every aspect of our kind of digital strategy moving forward. So we want to engage resident staff to design those things. Working with people is a big part of our next 3 years. So whether that is officers working across teams to problem solve some of the issues we've got for some of our residents, to work with our residents to understand some of their pain points, some of the things we could do better, and collect some of that information, whether from complaints, whether from members' inquiries, whether from service requests, whether from requests coming through our contact centre, to understand where we're not as efficient as possible as a council, and use that information to drive continuous improvement in how we do our services. So we want to make sure we're using our time and money most wisely, but we can also measure that success, measure where we are either improving services or whether we're making savings to make sure we're meeting the financial challenge of us as an organisation in the public sector. And we want to become one council as well, again, stripping away some of those service silos that we often face by setting up cross-functional project teams. We want to share budgets, share goals, and make sure we're empowering teams to realise how they can do things for themselves, So I'm doing a lot of work within the organisation at the moment. We've got a lot of knowledge within our workforce, and we've got a lot of people that understand the problems. We want to empower all the workforce to go and solve those problems and help those areas and take control of their services and make those improvements. Some of that's facilitated by better technology, some of that's facilitated by better data, but by coming together with the expertise of my team within the services, we can problem solve more quickly and improve our organisation on a more regular basis. So we're really committed as an organisation to improve the resident and the member experience, but making that as a continual improvement, not just one-offs. So the progress so far, so what have we done over the last 6 to 12 months, and what have we seen so far since I've been in post? Well, we've done some really good stuff, but we're nowhere near where we need to be in terms of the improvement we need to make. So we were the first UK local authority to deploy automated voice and web chat solutions at scale within our contact centre. So we've been working with Amazon, so AWS, to be able to automate some of our contacts. So you'll see when you go into our contact centre, you'll be sent back a form so you can contact us, and we've got a web chat solution. This enables us, for the people that can access those services most easily, to transact with us in a more modern way, again, that you'd expect when you're in your day-to-day lives dealing with the private sector. We've actually got a decent, modern and flexible infrastructure, and we've reduced the number of applications we have. So the applications are the things that are the technical backdrop of all our services across the council. So we're trying to consolidate them, reduce them. The more of those we have, the more expensive it is. But the more of those we have, the more data we have in different silos, the more difficult it is for residents to go between those applications. So we've reduced those. And we've also done a lot out there in Hillingdon as a place. So we've improved our connectivity. So we've improved 5G connectivity out across the borough, largely with BT. We've improved our council sites in terms of their connectivity, so people can get onto Wi-Fi, they can have connectivity wherever they are in the borough, and we've made the biggest improvement of all London boroughs over the last 4 years. And we've also got a future roadmap of investment that's going to the Cabinet next week, so we can deliver that ambition to be a digitally enabled, modern, well-run council. But what are we doing in the future, and what's our future investment programme? So why do I get really excited about being in this role? And it's truly a pleasure, and it's an honour to be the Chief Digital and Information Officer of Hillingdon Council. We're working at a time where technology is improving as fast as it's ever improved society, and as Hillingdon Council, we want to embrace that in our organisation. So we've been through kind of 4 stages in the history of our country, in the history of the world as well, in terms of how technologies and processes have changed to change society for the good. So we've had the transformation of labour back in the 1780s, and then we've had the more kind of industrialisation in the 1870s, where it had a huge economic impact by moving to more process automation and more manufacturing. Then we've had the more kind of in the kind of the late 60s, we've had the kind of the more disruption and the automation of the things we do. But as of today, things like AI, technology, data is increasing the fastest it's ever increasing, and it's fundamentally changing society as a whole. And you'll see a massive amount of change. You'll read a lot about it in the press, how it's changing society. It has its positives, it has its negatives, but we need to be part of that change as Hillingdon Council. So we've got 5 programmes that we're running at the moment to improve our digital experience for our residents and our members. So first and foremost is our customer experience. So we need to give our residents an end-to-end customer journey. So making sure, again, when residents interact with us, it's end-to-end. So we can go from whatever problem is to resolution. All residents can understand the progress of what it is, and it's resolved first time. And we need to give a better experience on the web. So we need to make our services more accessible online, make it easier to do the things, whether it's a transaction, whether it's a query, we need to make that as easily as possible. And you'll know from doing things like members' inquiries and also just looking at our internet, our website at the moment, it's not as efficient and effective as it needs to be. And it's not the best in local government. It's probably in the mid-ground, but it's getting aged pretty quickly. So we need to make it more accessible, more easily. And that kind of, when you're looking at a You want to see you as a person, as a Hillingdon resident. You want to see your menu of options. You want it personalised for you. You want it to see what you're doing, what your query, what your transaction, what your history is, what you've asked the council, what's the progress of that thing you're doing. And we need to make it much easier for our residents to do business with us. So we need to revamp our website, and again, to make sure we can transact 24/7, 365, and not need to phone us. You only need to phone us if you've got a problem or you can't digitally transact with us, or you're vulnerable, or you're digitally excluded. We want to make sure we get things right first time. An unbelievable stat, which I didn't quite believe actually when I first came into the council, and I've done a lot of work trying to work this out. We have 116 telephone numbers as a council for people to contact us. That is an inefficient way of running a business, and an inefficient way of running a council. So we want to reduce that to make sure there's one number, and it's easy to there's an easy, seamless experience, and it's a consistent experience across the council of how you're interacting with our services, whether on the telephone, whether on the web. We want a consistent experience, and at the moment, residents don't have at the moment, so we need to rationalise our telephone contact and make it as easy as possible. And we've also set up a digital inclusion programme, as I've mentioned previously. So we want to give people the skills, connectivity and technology to be digitally enabled, and we want to prioritise the contact with vulnerable and digitally excluded residents. Some of that's making sure that when people contact us, we can identify them as vulnerable or digitally excluded, so we can prioritise them in our queuing system. So it's not me. In my thought is I can use digital stuff. I've rang up because I'm a bit lazy and I want to do a misbin. I can do that online. It's someone who's 85 that lives on her own that requires our help immediately because she's fallen. We want to be able to prioritise those customer needs more quickly and have those algorithms in our contact centre to be able to help the people that need our help the most, but also focus our telephony contact on the people that need our help the most. Almost like a casework system of spending our time on the telephones really helping people that need our help, not the people that can help themselves, so rebalancing what we're about as an organisation. And we want to improve our satisfaction by doing that, because we want residents to be satisfied first time, that we can support them. But also, how do we do that? So we need to embrace more technology and more of the advances in technology around automations and integrations. So I've got another programme that does that. So we want a single front door for residents. So focusing on those kind of high-cost, high-demand services. So your kind of social care and the housing. So we've got a single digital front door that helps support our residents. So they've got good quality information from our website. They understand what support is out there in the community for them. So we have a lot of great organisations in our voluntary and community sector that people don't necessarily know about, or we don't promote them in the right way. But also we want to make sure we're assessing people, supporting people that need our help the most. So having a single front door, whenever someone comes in, we're not bouncing them around in between services. We have a digital front door that will have the analytics behind it, that will have the people behind it, that will help that household, that resident, to support them first time. But to do that, we need our systems to integrate with each other, and at the moment they don't all integrate with each other. So we have lots of applications as an organisation, but we need to make sure they talk to each other. So we have a single view of our customer, but we also need to make sure our officer processes are automated, they're digital where possible. Again, we want officers to help people. We don't want them filling out forms, doing manual handling of data. For example, we want to do things like translations. Translations cost money. Right? We can automate that because we've got the technology to do that. So we've got multiple needs and multiple languages within our borough, so we can automate those translations. And things like document summaries and document productions we can automate those by using AI. So we'll be soon utilising AI within the organisation, and obviously you've read lots of press about it. It's always in the news. The good things, the bad things about it, some of the data efficacy issues, but fundamentally we want to use it as a power for good. So for example, we have in our business, we have PAs, people taking minutes. We don't need to do that in the future because AI will do that for you. So by having an AI agent on your laptop, it will be able to listen to this conversation, it will be able to either transcribe it or be able to summarise it and pick out the action points. So you would need less humans to do those kind of more low-value activities when we're answering things like FOIs and complaints. we have a lot of data as an organisation. We have a language model that sits underneath us as an organisation. At the moment, we're having people running around the organisation collecting information to answer an FOI. Soon we'll be able to use AI to do that for us. It won't do everything for us. It will get to, let me give 80% of the answer. You will always have a human that will have to check something, whether that's the minutes in meetings, whether that's an FOI, whether that's a complaint. But the grunt work that sits behind it, technology will do that for you, and it will improve and improve over time. So again, we'll improve in our productivity as an organisation and making sure we can do things quicker and easier so we can do the more high-value tasks. And there's some stats there that how AI is already transforming work. So by using some of the Microsoft-based AI solutions that are out there at the moment, there's some good examples of either the hours saved or the amount of time you spend not doing those activities as opposed to AI doing it for you. Business intelligence. So business intelligence is how you use data. So again, the third programme in terms of our journey is to make sure we're making better evidence-based decisions about how we challenge the current ways of working in our services to join up our residents, deliver the understanding how we supporting that person, how much are we paying for that package of care, understanding how if we invest that much in that family, how much is that going to support from a preventative agenda, so we can spend less on high value and high cost packages of care, even if that is for a few years. How we understanding things like smart devices in homes, how we taking the data and that to help our elderly resident to support her or him more easily by understanding that real-time data. And we're doing some of this now, so we're doing some pilots, for example, in adult social care, in the prevention agenda by putting some devices, smart devices in people's homes to help them understanding their movements, understanding what they're doing in a non-intrusive way, so the care worker or the family member can support their elderly resident or family member more easily, but also understanding things from our place perspective. So where we've got damp and mould in our accommodation, we're going to start putting sensors in people's homes to understand the humidity and the complexity of people's households, so they don't get damp and mould. We'll be able to detect before they get to that space and be able to put in interventions to make sure it's not as costly, because by the time it's damp and mould, it's going to be really expensive to either replace it or to mitigate some of those areas. So we want devices in homes to do that. And thinking about what's out there for pollution, highways, street lighting, potholes, we can use devices to be able to manage those areas in a more effective way as a council, and at low cost as well, because technology is moving so quickly, it's reducing in cost over time. So a small device that will either be on one of our refuse lorries or in someone's home are reducing in price all the time, and there's significant ways we can improve our assets as an organisation, whether they'll be roads, whether they'll be our buildings, or whether they'll be supporting the people that need our help the most. And also we want to be able to understand our residents and households so we can predict demand in the future. So by using data and data algorithms and predictive analytics and machine learning, we'll be able to understand what residents, what households, but what also services need in the future. Rather than reacting, we can be proactive and supporting people in a more constructive way. And also for you as members, I want you to be able to see the data for the residents in your wards, but not census data, because that's old and it's useful to a point, but I'd argue it doesn't really tell you that much about your residents. We're starting to build a data platform as of next week that you'll be able to see live data, so live data from the services from your residents in your ward on your laptop. So you'll be able to open this laptop and you'll be able to hone down onto your ward and see a single view of residents and households and the services they're consuming, the complaints they're making, so we can make better decisions about the people that we serve and be able to help them more by understanding the data that sits around them. So we're going to be spending over the next 3 years improving how we're understanding the intelligence of our residents and our households to be able to support people in the best possible way. And some of the more boring bits unfortunately, being in the tech world, is we have a load of systems, so we want to consolidate where we can, so that's reducing the number of them. Therefore, it's easier to extract the data, it's more cost effective, and we need to improve our systems. So we've underinvested in technology over a period of time as an organisation, and we've got some aged systems out there at the moment which don't offer the best experience for our officers. They're quite hard to use, they're time consuming, they offer lots of manual interventions, but that has a knock-on implication of how it's there for residents as well, because if it's more difficult to understand from an officer perspective and it's more time consuming, then from a resident perspective they're not getting the best experience because we're not understanding the data, or we're spending our time fiddling around with systems where it should be more seamless. So we need to consolidate and improve them, but we also need to make sure they're integrated as well, so we have a better customer experience. So when contact's made, it's often going into an application, so something in the council, and we need to make sure that's seamless, it does it straight away, and it's kept up to date so the resident can see the progress and us as officers can see the progress to make sure we're resolving things first time. And we've got some examples of that within the council. So at the moment we have 6 education systems. We'll be reducing that to 1. Again, much better for the service. There is a single view from an education estate and a pupil perspective that will mean we can better provide services for our pupils, for our schools, and we have all the data that's sat in one place that we can use to make better decisions. We need to replace our planning system for town planning, so it's becoming end of life. But we also, what we'll do is improve the service whilst thinking about the system, using the system as a catalyst to improve how we transform our planning services. We need to upgrade our legal system. It's fairly old, it's clunky, the case management bit doesn't work all that well, and so we're upgrading it at the moment. And of course, a large amount of our resources at council is spent on social care, and we're spending a lot of time and effort at the moment of improving our social care systems, making sure they're more interoperable, so we understand how the data flows between them, but also making sure we're driving the best analytics out our social care system, because fundamentally we're making decisions on a daily basis as an organisation that affects people's lives. We need the best data possible to make the best decisions about those people, but also from a financial perspective, given that's over 3/4 of our spend as an organisation, we need to make sure we're spending our money in the right way to support those vulnerable residents. And in our back office, we're adopting an ERP solution, so Oracle Cloud for our finance systems, which goes live at the start of April. But we also want to make sure we improve our HR systems and again integrate those things. So not only will we have a single view of the resident and the household across the borough, that we have a single view of our officers as well. Again, so making sure we're as efficient as possible in understanding our officers. But what sits at the back of this is the last programme is how we enable change. So we recognise that we need to do better at learning and development across the council, and that's with officers and members as well. So we know we've got a skills deficit as an organisation. Some people are really good at using the systems we've got. Some people aren't good at using the systems we've got. Some people are good at using some of the basic tools, so some of the Microsoft suite. Some people struggle to use it. So we need to invest more in skilling people up. So we're delivering a learning and development programme across the council as we roll out more devices, because our devices are becoming end of life, and that's for members and officers as well. So investing in people so they become more productive. You'll be really pleased to know, having had the experience of plugging in my laptop over the back of the room, is we're going to improve our committee rooms as well to make sure we're modern, more efficient, we're more public friendly, but we've got better technology across. You can see from the screen in front of you, it's a little bit wonky. It's a bit like when I was at school. So we're not quite there in terms of the technology, and we want to be modern and efficient as a council. And also, what we're doing is working across the area as well. So I'm doing a lot of work at the moment with things like the West London Alliance, Brunel University, adult education, our local schools, to make sure we're not just thinking about us as an organisation, we're thinking about us as a place. So the West London Alliance, thinking across 7 boroughs. When I talked about having damp and mould sensors in people's homes, we're doing that across the 7 boroughs and across London to make sure there's economies of scale and how we do procurement, but also how we do the learning across London, and also focusing on the things that matter to West London as well. So things like digital skills. We're working with Microsoft at the moment to work with them to get AI skills training into schools. So Microsoft want to skill up a million kids in schools. Well, as West London Alliance, we want to be one of the forefront organisations and areas to be able to do that, to get those skills in our schools, because that gives people better life chances, give better chance of employment moving forward. We started to make some good close connections with Brunel University. Brunel University is fantastic in the digital and technology space, as you'll know. So working on things like working on projects together, so where we've got postgrad and undergraduate students, making sure that they are bringing some of their skills back into the council, so we can do some of the learning for that, having some placements for students coming in to the council, but also setting up apprenticeships within my team, within the council, to make sure we're ingesting some of those skills of our local schools and the talented people we've got in our local area, and we're doing a lot of work experience with our local schools, because we want local government to be attractive for people to work in, and we are working in data analytics, we're working in AI, so we're doing some of the things that business and big business are doing, and we're doing some of the exciting things with things like Amazon and Microsoft, some of the big suppliers out there in the technology world that people are really excited to work with. But we're also working with adult education to making sure we have a coherent digital inclusion programme, and we're doing that with schools, the voluntary sector. We'll be recycling 500 devices, so 500 of our laptops, and giving them out to community groups, vulnerable groups, to make sure we can support people that need our help the most over the coming 6 months. And also we're trying to improve our programme of connectivity as well, like I talked about a little bit about before, about how do we become a smart city. So working with the university, working with local businesses, working within our local area to make sure we've got connectivity, the possibility of setting up tech startups in Hillingdon, giving them the connectivity. We want to be a place that people want to come and do business with as an area, and attracting some of those skills. And when I first came into the organisation, I was kind of blown away by some of the digital skills we've got in the local area that we're not making the best use of, or the businesses we've got potential to support. So creating that kind of tech view of Hillingdon as a council, but also Hillingdon as a place. With the good comes sometimes the not so good. And I don't want to touch on this too much because it's just part of the programme moving forward. And colleagues of mine have come to this committee before and presented what we've done on member inquiries. I'm accountable for it now, but it wasn't necessarily my decision about how we did things in the past. But I'll give you a bit of a history lesson and talk a little bit about what we're doing in the future. So we launched the members inquiries process, the new one, back in 1st of January 2023. And it involved lots of people. We did all the user experience things. We involved members from both sides of the political spectrum. We involved democratic services. We involved our officers. We worked with a supplier to build something. They were the set of objectives that we set out when we built it. We did some of the right things. So we did the training, we did the testing, we did the guides. But it's not perfect. And I recognise it's not perfect. And I've reviewed it myself and looked, and we built it on one of our existing systems. It's quite an aged system. It's not quite modern enough. It's not quite a case management system, because fundamentally members' inquiries is a case management system, but it's one of many case management systems we use across the organisation. Fundamentally, you want a case management system. What's the problem? How am I going to resolve it? Let's update the person that we've resolved it. It's kind of not that difficult, but we've complicated it. So we've reviewed what we're doing. We've taken on board, again, the select committee's feedback. So there's some of the feedback. We've completed some of the things that were some of your bugbears as a committee, but also some of the bugbears across the organisation. And we've taken the feedback, and what we're trying to do is improve the thing that we've got at the moment iteratively, and to make the best use of it, recognising that it's never going to be perfect, but it's one of many things we need to improve moving forward. I've done some work with my team, taken on board the select committee recommendations, but also understanding how things work at the moment by looking at the evidence, is looking at the feedback. And on the members' day, so you had a session with my team to understand some of those, and we've got some recent feedback that we're working on at the moment. So in terms of our next steps, is we're going to do more on learning and development. again, across organisations and across councils, it's very easy to blame the system. The same with any application in the council. Unfortunately, the reality is it's a people problem as much as a system problem. Often it is the problem of the person putting in the data in the first place. They either don't know how to use it or they do it incorrectly, as much as the system is clunky and difficult to use. So we need to improve both of those things. So we need to do more learning and development, that people find it more difficult to use, depending on what medium you're using, whether you're doing it on your laptop, whether you're doing it on your mobile phone, is making sure we can improve the learning and development, but also making sure we can pick up those system changes that need to happen based on your feedback, is looking at those improvements. So as of today, in fact, my team are doing it today, sitting across members' inquiries, complaints, is we've got a big list of improvements. We're going back to the supplier and working out in the short term what we can do around those to make sure you've got a better experience. But at the same time, we're doing some more fundamental things that we're doing as a council back to the digital journey, is we want to make sure we're using the data. So as a case management system, it has loads of really valuable data about our place, our community, our people, but actually the sole purpose of case management isn't just to close the case, it's to understand what we need to do in that area moving forward. So we want to use the data from member inquiries, but also complaints, contact centre data, resident data. And again, when I'm promising you a review of your wards from a member perspective, us as officers need that to shape our area. So putting all that customer data in one place to say, how can we make improvements to our area? How can we be more proactive in delivering those improvements before the issues even happen? Where do we need to focus more attention on? Where are there seasonal demands? Are there particular demands in different services at certain times? Are we having a spike in certain areas for the reasons we need to better understand? But also how we communicate and engaging with our residents in the first place, how we publicising the things that we need them to do or they need our help in. So it's multifaceted in the things we need to do, but also reviewing our approach to case management and customer data across the council moving forward. So this is one of many changes in understanding how we bring back control of our own data and our own processes back into the council, rather than with suppliers, and making sure they're efficient and as effective as possible. So the simple answer is we're going to improve what we've got, but also we're going to do a fundamental review, so over the medium term, to look at having a better system for all of our casework, all of our customer management moving forward. So that's the end of my presentation, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions about anything you've heard or any issues you have around our digital journey.
Well, that was a fantastic presentation, and it's great to hear somebody so enthusiastic about his subject and knows so much. Whether we've all taken everything in that you've gone across to its fullest extent, but certainly the overall picture as far as the digital journey is concerned is about how it's driven and what the aims and ambitions are. And we know for certain that that the leader and the cabinet are very committed to the digital journey. The important thing, of course, is making sure that the bigger highlight, in one sense, is that the resident experience is first and foremost. The residents need to feel that they can be in contact with the council and contact the council effectively. And we're still, to an extent, I suppose, in a very significant transition stage from a time when the contact was very much more personal and individual, to a time getting to a point where the efficiency of contact, especially if it's going to be digital, I mean, it's in two sections, isn't it? You've got the resident experience in terms of their contact, and then you've got the way in which the digital overlay can work for us, as you were saying. For example, sensors in people's houses about damp and so forth, being able to not necessarily have to send an engineer out to look at roads, but having it dealt with by a drone or something like that. I mean, those sorts of things, they're two very different areas, aren't they? But I want to concentrate for the moment on the resident experience and how do we, and we're not going to solve it tonight by any means, but in general terms, part of this journey and part of this realignment that you're undertaking clearly must make sure that what the residents experience is pretty first class, and as you say, solves it. Added to, sometimes there's a multiplicity of problems that they've got, and being able to deal with all of those at once, rather than perhaps what we've tended to do in the past by nature, is to deal with one bit and then pass the next bit on, when in fact they're really well connected. So what is that a major driver of what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we want a first-class resident experience, and making sure that through our primary channel, which should always be digital rather than telephony, is we give people first-time resolution. So we want people to have the same experience with the council that they have in their everyday life. They can go in, do something, whether that is filling out a form, getting that thing done, or actually working with a virtual agent. There's some really interesting stats at the moment that customer satisfaction is actually better when something's resolved by a virtual agent than by a human being on the telephone. Now, most people wouldn't believe that's true, but actually people don't want to talk to a person. They want something done first time, quickly and efficiently, and you're not always going to get a person, because the way we work as a council, we're not a 24/7, 365 organisation like many areas of the public sector, so you want to do things at your convenience, and your convenience isn't necessarily when the contact centre's open, but technology means we can be 24/7, 365, so we want to resolve things first time, but also understand the multiplicity of needs that people are coming in to the council. So we need to look horizontally at the council rather than in our service structures, and some of that's our biggest challenge is not the digital technology, it's about how we work as an organisation using digital technology to facilitate the better support for our residents. But some of that's quite basic as well. Some of it's the look and the feel of our website, some of it's the ability to have a form that's easy to use, some of it's the ability for our website to recognise you as a resident or a customer via my account straight away, so it understands where you live, it understands who's in your household, it understands what the things you're doing, what the things you need, and you can understand whatever you want, how progress is making. And we're making some progress in that. For example, if you've got a housing repair at the moment, you would generally sit around at home waiting for that housing repair to come, and you wouldn't know. So take the Amazon experience, it tells you roughly what time they're going to come, in a kind of 2-hour slot most of the time, and then when it gets closer, it will show you where you are on that journey, whether you're customer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're starting to get that. We're doing that in housing repairs now, so you can understand what time your housing repair is going to happen roughly, but you can also talk to that housing repairs person, so you don't have to sit at home all day waiting. You can be in that period of time, but also if there's a problem, there's an issue on either way, so it's a two-way conversation about either how that maintenance person can update you, or you can update the maintenance person. So we want to be more live, more real as a council to help people, and ever more so when we're trying to talk and support vulnerable people. So, and again, we've got a multitude of languages, a multitude of complexity of needs as a council, and again, technology will help that. Technology will auto-translate via telephony and pick up a language and respond back in that language. So even if I don't speak Polish, I can pick up the phone, I'd be able to listen to that person that can't speak English. In Polish, it will translate it to me in English. I will reply back and it will translate it back into Polish, for example. That is a significant change in how we're supporting people. Or things like translations. So technology will help us auto-translate documents in a variety of different languages. Again, that's a massive change in how we're supporting our very diverse communities out there at the moment to help to make sure we're supporting them in the best possible way. If we think 5 years ago, you'd have to find someone with that language skills in the contact centre, and they might not be there, or it might be a different language that we don't have the skills in. And then we'd have to work out a time to talk to that person when there's a translator, so there would be a massive lag. All that's automated now, so we're being more efficient and more productive, and that's given a better customer experience that's reflective of our area and the communities we serve.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Batt.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Matthew, for your presentation. Technology is always changing all the time, like you said, especially with AI, but also the platforms that build the AI. For example, you use AWS at the moment, but tomorrow Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud might be better, and there's limitations with what AWS can do, and then there's compatibility limitations, in my experience at least, with AWS. So there's two questions. What are we doing to ensure that we keep up with these technological changes, and how agile are we, and how cost effective would it be to change from AWS to another platform if we needed to? And the second question is, to what extent are we using existing APIs rather than creating our own systems? Because I never really understood that, and to deliver our tasks, because that will be a lot less costly, and we can hold them accountable if the app fails. And the ME system is a great example of that, where we could just use an existing system that's out there, made purpose-built for something like that. And there's some great tools out there. Otter's a great tool to dictate. People HR is a great software for HR, for example.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Batten. Really good questions. I feel like a job interview now, because that's the sort of thing you'd get in my space. So we have a kind of multi-tenanted approach. So we're a Microsoft house. So we have Azure in terms of I'm trying to be non-technical, so you have to bear with me on some of this. So we have different providers that help us in different ways. So we have AWS, so it's called AWS Connect. That's the thing in the presentation, that we were the first local authority to be able to do it at scale. But that also goes into our Microsoft Azure environment. So what we do is that we take the best of breed and make sure they connect with each other. So we're technology agnostic, but we do have Microsoft Cloud, we do have Microsoft laptops, and we are trying to more build on the Microsoft platform moving forward. But for example, this week I had a conversation with AWS and Microsoft together about how we can interconnect our AWS Connect front door with a potential having a CRM solution that we can understand our customers better. And you're right, that's through connectors or APIs to make sure that we connect our systems. So that's question one, and I'll go to question three on that, because you're right about APIs. That's the ability for our applications and our systems to be able to connect with each other, talk to each other, but also understand the data flows between them. So we're getting better at it, to be fair. So we have some technology debt that sits around there. So some of our systems don't connect that well with each other because of the way because either they're aged or they don't connect that well. But we're using APIs quite heavily at the moment to make sure we have a more seamless customer experience where possible. But I think some of the limitations of that are the fact of our data is constructed in a very different way across our systems. So where they're connected, they have different conventions that sit around them. So in terms of the identifier of the person, so we're building a data platform that will enable us to be able to understand the single view of the customer or residents by ingesting the data from all those disparate systems via connectors and APIs. So that's taking all our big line of business systems from social care to housing to Revs and Bens to be able to connect all those people data together. And it's part of our journey moving forward that we are moved to a more low-code environment where we can take back control of our processes by using APIs, using the Microsoft Power Platform. So every decision we make is kind of buy or build. So what we want to do is to make sure, where possible, we take back control and build things ourselves. So that means we're not spending money with lots of IT companies and providers out there. Every time we want to change, we're having to pay 10, 20 grand, whatever it is, to make that change. What we want to do is build some of those systems ourselves. So when we want to make the change, we have the people, we have the skills to be able to make that change ourselves. But where there is a specialist system, you're right, there's great products out there pretty much for everything you ever want to do. But often it's a cost issue of how much do you want to pay to do that thing. So we want to make sure where there is best of breed, we do buy those systems where it's specialists. But when we're buying those systems, we make sure we own the data and we can connect that system into anything we've got. So that's part of our journey, is to understand that. And your second question is, how do we keep up with technology? Well, that's my job, I guess, is, I'm out there learning. I would say as Hillingdon Council and as local government, we're not doing anything that anyone's not done before. So we're trying to learn from others. So we work heavily with some of the big providers out there to make sure we're bringing the best of breed into Hillingdon. So we're looking from a data perspective and also from a digital perspective, as being one of the first local authorities to do things, whilst learning from the public sector. So taking a lot of learning from central government departments, other bits of local government, understanding from the organisations that sit around us, but also making sure that you're right in terms of keeping up with technology, that we take that leap to keep up to date with technology, whereas in the past we've suffered from underinvestment in technology and technology debt. So it's cheaper at the moment to catch up with some of that now and maintaining it, that level of investment, as opposed to having systems that we use for 3 to 5 years that become really expensive to either change or to improve moving forward. So that's why we're fundamentally looking at the kind of root and branch review of us as an organisation, to understand what are the things that sit across our organisation that really matter, where we've got big systems. So we don't have a CRM solution to understand our customers at the moment because we've disinvested in that as an organisation. We need to reinvest back into that to make sure we've got a better resident and customer experience. We need to make sure we're investing in the ability to change our processes. We need to make sure that we're investing in AI in a safe way to make sure we're getting on board with some of those technology advances. But there's always a financial challenge behind what we do, and we've got to make sure we're driving out the savings and the benefits from what we're investing in. And we've got a coherent and, I would say, an excellent, because I wrote it, I'm going to say that, but we've got an excellent investment programme, and we've got a really supportive cabinet that are behind us understanding where we need to go as an organisation to play catch up in local government, but also accelerate what we do at pace. But what sits behind that is, if we invest, we have a better resident experience and we improve people's lives. I think that's a no-brainer. And technology is there for a power of good, and it does improve people's lives, and it does improve resident experience, and that's what I'm passionate about, is using it in the best way possible, recognising that there's challenges from the past. For example, how we do member inquiries isn't perfect, but we know we can improve all of these things over a period of time. It's just what order we prioritise those, because we can't do everything at once.
All right, thank you. Councillor Banerjee, then Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Matthew, for quite a comprehensive presentation. My initial thoughts are it's big step change in a short amount of time. And my question just circles back to what the Chairman said at the sort of top of the meeting around customer experience. What are the risks that we leave, like sort of pockets of our residents behind on this journey? So I'm thinking of like elderly residents, those who are not technology au fait, those who don't have English as their first language, and those with like disabilities. Something like web chat may not be for everybody. And whilst I accept your point about there's language tools out there at the moment, and they can translate somebody speaking in Polish, and you can understand it, and you translate it back. In my experience, in my day job, those tools just do literal translations, and things can be lost in translation, if you catch my drift. So that's just a concern for me. We're trying to do a lot in a short amount of time. Would there still be help and support for these, as I said, pockets of residents, and will there be channels that they can access these services when we go digital? Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you for your question, and a really good one. And again, I'm really passionate about not leaving people behind, and that's why we've got a digital inclusion programme to make sure we can support the residents that can't access our services more easily. And there's a kind of simple equation in what we're doing is we need to disinvest actually in people that can help themselves and reinvest that money into people that need our help the most. So where we're going on the journey and we're using technology in the best way possible, that means we want to channel shift some of those residents that can more easily do stuff online, that can do things 24/7, 365. They have a better platform to do it. So there's a cost attached to do that. So it's over 10 times cheaper to do things on a digital means than via a customer contact centre. And frustrating when you're in the customer contact centre, because the more people have, the more queues they have, the more frustrating, the worse customer experience it's going to be. So we want to reduce the volume of those people using telephony that can actually help themselves. But why is that? And I've been through this in the presentation, it's failure demand, and I use that phrase quite a lot. It's failure demand because we're not helping people at the first point of contact, and we're not supporting people by having the best digital experience. If we can do that, and we are doing that at the moment, we are driving our call volumes down. We're increasingly putting our services online. We've put a set of services online via AWS Connect. We're doing the second round at the moment. We're making sure that's more end-to-end in terms of supporting first-time resolution by disinvesting, i.e. having more budget away from those people to invest those into the people that need our help the most, and that's reinvesting the money in the digital inclusion programme. So that's making sure people have got connectivity where possible. So where people can't access the web so they can do stuff, we give them digital connectivity. Where they don't have laptops or they don't have the ability to go online, we support them getting laptops. Where they don't have the skills to do that, we give them learning and development. And that's not just us as a council, that's us as an area by working with our voluntary and community sector to be able to do that. But always there's going to be a pocket of people that can't go online, need our help. And that's what we want to use our contact centre for, to really support those people, to have quality conversations, to really support their multiple needs. And there's great examples when someone rings, and I was talking to the chair about this earlier, is someone rings up and you're resolving multiple things on that call apart from what that resident or what that household needs. But we need to free up the time and the capacity for the people to be able to do that, and that's why we want a digital front door to be able to support those common patterns where people want to pay for something, they want to report something, they want to book something, make that a good digital experience. And then we can help the people that are isolated, English isn't their first language, that need our immediate help because they're in a crisis. And we want to spend our resources on those people because they're more costly, they need our help the most, and that's what we're in local government for, is to help the people that need our help the most. And that's where we want to rebalance our effort by having a more digitally inclusive community, want to help the people that can help themselves, and then rebalance our resources to the people that really do need our help the most. And that will happen over a period of time. You're right, we're trying to do things quickly, but we're doing things sustainably in a measured way, because you don't jump from one thing to the other. It requires a lot of work to understand how our systems integrate with each other. It requires more learning and development for our staff. It requires a better understanding of our residents. We actually need to engage some of our residents in how we design our services with them and for them, rather than telling them what they need and what they should do. So we've got a 3-year programme to do this. Whilst we want to accelerate some of those areas more quickly, we want to do this. And one of the principles back is for us to be more financially sustainable as an organisation, to drive those benefits out over a period of time. So we're absolutely committed as an organisation to do that and help the people that need our help the most.
Thank you. Councillor John.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions.
Go for it.
So the first one is around the resident experience. I'm going to use missed collections as an example. So I raised something earlier this month actually, where someone had a missed collection, but on the website it doesn't actually state that you can't log anything till after 1 o'clock or something like that on the day. On the phone they're trying to get through, can't get through, and they just get the message get cut off. So resident experience, what sort of feedback are you doing for that? And the other issues that I've had from members in my ward is when they do get onto the system, you go to look for your address and half the street might be missing. So what are you doing in terms of collating where people are getting through? What has their resident experience been? Have they got any frustrations before you can fix it? That's one question. And the second question was around, with any sort of digitalisation, any sort of system, outages happen, where you've got someone maybe vulnerable in care. If they're looking to get hold of you, what backup systems have you got in place to cover those outages?
Let me cover outages first, because that's the easier one. We actually have very few outages. We've got really robust infrastructure. We've rationalised our systems and our applications over the past 2-3 years. So we don't have outages at the moment at all. We have some of them in our back office systems, more of our front office systems. So some of things like our analytical programs and some of our social care systems, they tend to go down every now and again, but they're for a short period of time. And most of our outages are due to the fact we're upgrading them at the moment. So actually, from an infrastructure place and validated by Microsoft, actually, we're in a good position. So unlike most organisations, you don't see big outages at all. Sometimes you'll see it at the weekends when we're doing upgrades and when we're improving our systems, but we're also investing more in our cloud-based systems, so you'll get less outages and you'll get less disruption where you've got that robustness of having cloud-based systems rather than server-based systems. So we're reducing that over time. So I feel really confident about what we're doing in terms of having systems that work for the people. They need to work a little bit better for our officers, admittedly, for some of them, but some of that's just the technical debt and the age of some of our systems, but fundamentally they don't impact residents, they more impact on the productivity of our officers. Again, really frustrating about addresses, for example, is across our estate, our data quality needs some improvement. So at the moment, I'm reviewing our data governance, our data quality, and looking at how we improve that across our whole organisation. And I think sometimes, and the challenge that we all face and that I face is local government is sometimes not unlike any other business, but also is completely unlike any other business just by the volume of the services we run and the volume of applications we have. Therefore, understanding the data part is really difficult because you're trying to have an address composite that matches every single system we have, and we have lots and lots of systems. So we're trying to improve our data quality, and through the data platform, we'll be doing a piece of work over the next 3 months is going back to basics and understanding our data quality in each of those systems, and things like address matching, things like where we've got multiple records from individuals. For example, my surname Wallbridge will be spelt Woolbridge or Wallbridge, but I'll be the same person, but there will be different records of me throughout the council with sometimes different addresses. So we need to tidy up our data, because with things like AI is reliant on having good quality data. If you don't have good quality data, you're not fundamentally making good decisions, and you won't have good business intelligence if you don't have good data that underpins it. So we've got a journey to go, and some of that is, again, the technology debt from the past is we're having to improve that. The good thing is technology has advanced so much that there are things like data matching algorithms, there are ways of cleaning up data that is quicker, easier, and a lot cheaper than it has been ever. So we can improve those things more quickly. And I don't know the answer about miscollections. I'll go away and come back to you on that one. It's fairly typical, having worked in local government for a while, that it's not an immediate response. So we've got NCAP technology that will go back. If someone reports a missed bin, it will go back into their NCAP technology, so they will be able to see that missed bin is. But there is a lag between when that missed bin happens and the ability for that person on that round to be able to do something about it. Therefore, they normally pick it up not straight away. They normally go back and do it, which is a number of hours after, or they have to pick it up on the next day. And I'll answer it in a slightly different way, is we want to get better at live data. So we want that live piece where we'll be able to, from contact, to the person that dealing with that thing, whether that will be street cleaning, whether that will be refuse collection, is we want the systems to integrate. So from point of customer contact to the person dealing with that thing, that's a live piece of data that we can deliver that thing, whatever it is, really quickly, but we also can feedback. So it's always a feedback loop of said, you've asked us to do this, we've done that. When we've done it, we've resolved your problem.
All right, thank you. Yeah, sure.
So, sorry, just to be clear, you can't actually log your missed collection until 1 o'clock. So you can ring up, but you can't say that you've got a missed collection until after 1 o'clock. But there's no message when you're ringing to say that. You're just ringing through. So, sorry, going back to the resident experience, what I'm saying is it might be important at this stage to be collecting feedback from the residents that are coming through to you about any frustrations they have when they're coming through, so that you can fix that before you move on to the new systems. I understand you can capture that with AI if they're typing to a chat bot, but if they're calling in, or if they can't actually even log it, how are you going to capture that?
And just following up on that, is that a problem? Or, and again, I'll go away, go and look at it.
Can I just interrupt a minute? I don't think we can necessarily deal in this meeting with sort of individual issues, but it's a good point. So the general observation about how residents can deal with things, perhaps if you want to send me a note on it, and I'll pass it on to Matthew, because it may be a generic problem with the system we've got at the minute. And in any event, I know that there's going to be, if there haven't already been, surveys with residents about issues exactly like this. So, they come across something, they want to report it, but they can't because of some time marking or whatever it is.
Yeah, so that it's not personal. It was just an example. I was just saying that perhaps there should be. I don't think there is any feedback part to a call or an issue. So perhaps they need to incorporate what the issues are so they can resolve them.
Yeah.
That's all. It wasn't.
No. I just it was personal. What I meant was a resident inquiry that you've had in particular, but it's not an unusual situation. And the broader point is in terms of those issues which residents have, which are a frustration because of the nature of how a reporting issue has been designed. Perhaps that can be taken away to be thought about.
Yeah, and it's a good example of how we're not optimising how we're taking feedback at the moment. Is you shouldn't be telling me that's an issue. I should have had the data to understand that is an issue, and I should have gone away and fixed it. Because we're not working that way as an organisation at the moment. We're not taking that customer data and the customer feedback on a regular basis. And part of my goal at the moment is to make changes efficient and agile as possible. So taking that resident feedback, going to fix the things, and fixing things constantly, improving things constantly. Because technology, back to Councillor Batt's question, is technology is not static at the moment, and resident needs are changing all the time. So we need to look at how we improve things on a regular basis, taking that feedback, going to improve. But we need to do better as a council of communicating and engaging and feeding back to our residents. And we know there's a lot of work that needs to be done, because we don't talk about this much out there in Hillingdon. And we do some fantastic stuff. We also do some things that are less good. But we've got a really exciting programme. We should be telling people about that, and also communicating both digitally and in other mechanisms back to the people, to make sure we've listened to them and we've done what understood their pain points and fixed them, and what we've done about it. So I appreciate the feedback.
All right, thank you. Councillor Mathers.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really grateful and really reassured by your answers, your presentation. Councillor Batt raised some very good points. I was also scared around extended licences, monopolies, and that lack of agility. And I'm pleased that your role is in place. It's forced the hand of the Cabinet a bit when we've had struggling finances to have to change. There are obviously a number of challenges in this field. Everybody is going down this path. They want to find efficiencies. They want to find savings in order to maximise the resources they have available. That's across the board and everything. And I guess there's maybe an air of caution when we're talking about these ideas around how we manage our own expectations. I'm quite digitally ambitious, even though I am probably lack the understanding and sometimes the articulation around digital concepts and ideas. And in the public sector, it's not necessarily going to be it's not going to have the finite resources that many technology companies have or other large businesses. It's not necessarily sometimes going to be the most attractive offer for those who have the talent. So I guess it's kind of around risk management, really. So these savings have to be made in order for the council to balance its books. There's a lot of capital assets being disposed of in order to pay for it. So I guess whilst this programme goes forward, how are we managing that kind of making sure we have the team and talent available to continue this work and not be dependent on maybe one person or two people? That would really concern me. How do we succession plan? Not that you're going anywhere, but how do we plan that in the long term? Equally, how do we myth bust some of the things such as the things in the media around privacy? And when we've seen things around how data's been shared very quickly and people had no clue. I know that, for example, I had a very bad experience with my account a number of years ago. Don't go anywhere near it. I am grateful that on many things there are options that people don't have to log in, so family and friends can help those less digitally able. But I do love an app that knows who I am, and I know we're not there yet. I also love to give a bit of feedback on my customer experience, whether it's less so on the phone, but definitely on a web chat. If nothing else, it vents me through that moment of frustration. And you were very right about the action part. And I guess my worry in this customer journey is that we stop where the digital engagement bit ends, and then when it gets to the people who deliver the services, the customer journey isn't then continued. Now, we have very good officers and very good staff who deliver a lot for our residents, but it's that second part where there's the human factor, how the feedback comes back. Because if you, for example, get overly frustrated about, let's say misbin, just because the example's been put, yes, you can report and do the normal complaints thing, and that all might talk to each other. But if you have a little bit of a practical, something you see that you can't, as members we struggle sometimes enough with the GOS system, but if a resident sees something and they just want to instantly feedback, it's that how instantly can they do that? And if they're not digitally abled, or if a council officer from another department sees something, how do we, that last component, how do we track more of that information in? I know that was a few points in one question. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, appreciate the feedback, and again, really good questions from this committee. So let me cover them point by point. You're quite right about having the right people in the organisation, both within my digital intelligence directorate. So we're looking at the skills in my team at the moment. So I talked a little bit about kind of apprenticeships, work placements, linkages with Brunel University, but also bringing in expertise where needed from some of the big providers out there. So we work really closely with Microsoft, we work really closely with AWS to both work with them, but also work within the sector and understanding what does good look like. And often there's a lot of benefit by making sure you've got the right skills in the team. So we're at a point where we need different skills within the organisation. So let me give an example. So for business intelligence is moving forward really quickly in terms of data. So previously you had reports around kind of performance indicators, a lot of Excel spreadsheets. Those skills are less needed in the future. We need data engineers, data scientists. So we're looking at how do we bring those into the organisation. In fact, I would slightly disagree that local government isn't that attractive to work in. We've made Hillingdon attractive to work in. We had 450 applications for my head roles And the consistent feedback is Hillingdon's got one of the most exciting journeys from a digital perspective in the whole of the public sector at the moment, based on the scale of our ambition, but also the fact of we're working on those things live, and fundamentally it makes a difference to people's lives immediately like that, which is really different than any other business you'll ever work in. So if you care about people, you want to do some good, but you also love technology, that this is a really attractive. I feel like I'm doing a webcast and promoting roles in my team, but I think we're at a really exciting place, but also harnessing the talent in our local area as well. Again, I kind of touched upon it in our presentation. Even if I look at the people doing their GCSEs and A-levels at the moment within Hillingdon, we've got such a vast array of skills, and then we've got some great tech startups around here, and we've got Brunel University, we've got some amazing undergraduate and postgraduate students, and we want to create that ecosystem within our local area of bringing in the best talent and recognising that work patterns are changing at the moment as well. Whereas previously people would expect to stay 10, 15 years in local government, well, people are going to be staying 2 and 3 years in local government and doing a cool project and then moving on to something else. Well, we need to keep that conveyor belt going by working within the local area to harness the best talent, and by having better links with the university, with the schools, within the local area, but more fundamentally having a good reputation of us as an organisation, we'll be able to bring in the right talent. And I can say by the people that I've recently brought into my team is we're bringing in people from different sectors, from different organisations, from people that live quite a long way away that want to come and work with us as an organisation because they see the opportunity to do things differently. So I'm really confident, and it's not just about sometimes the kind of the technical talent of the team. It's about the organisation in its totality. Is we've got to have more productivity and better skills, and that's why we've got a learning and development program that sits across the organisation, because there's AI is a really good example of, I could put AI on everyone's device today if I really wanted to. It'd cost too much money and all that kind of stuff, but it would be a bad investment, because you've got to have those skills to be able to use it. You've got to be able to understand how to write a prompt. You've got to be able to understand how you can use so Copilot is Microsoft's version of AI. You've got to have latent skills to be able to use that AI agent on your laptop in the best possible way, and it's a pretty bad investment for most people at the moment because they don't know how to use it properly. Used in the right way and with the right data model that sits behind it, it's a massively powerful tool. So we've got to make sure we're investing in us as an organisation, and that's officers and members as well, because I want to give you the best applications, the best things that you can use to make sure you're more effectively in your role as councillors. But that requires learning and development. That requires supporting people along on the journey and recognising that everyone's on a different stage in their growth in this space. The difficulty is people are scared, both from a resident perspective and an officer and a member's perspective, because it's increasing and the pace of change is happening so quickly at the moment. We need to take people on the journey with us. But I'm really confident that we're spending a little bit more time as an organisation investing in people before technology. We're investing in talent and harnessing what we've got in the local area. And fundamentally, we want to be sustainable as an organisation. So that's something I feel really confident about. Data privacy, going back to the AI piece, is a really important area, but not just data privacy. Again, the learning and development part of how we're using the technology we've got at the moment. So again, I'm reviewing data governance, our data strategy, how we use data within the organisation to make sure we're safe. We've got a board that looks after these things. We've got an AI policy, so we're making sure that when we're building what we've got at the moment, we have data ethics that sit behind what we do. We are understanding how we put our data in vectors, so they're understood from what's personalised, what's not personalised, who can access what part of data, so it's safe, because we're dealing with vulnerable children, we're dealing with lots of personalised records. We want to make sure that we're protected from a data perspective. We've seen a massive increase this week, in fact, in phishing and cyber attacks across the country, but also in our own organisation, and it's become really sophisticated at the moment. And you'll see some of this in your personal emails as well as your council emails, that organisations are out there trying to take our data. So we've got to make sure we're secure. We've got to make sure that we use our data in the best way possible. So we've got the right policies. But in the end, it's about people, unfortunately. You can have them. We've got really good technology. We understand it. but a lot of it's down to human error. So when you're clicking on that email you shouldn't be clicking on, and again, really sophisticated people infiltrating our teams and pretending they're somebody else or they're an organisation we work with. So I got one today from DocuSign about, can you sign this document? Well, I know, because I should be good at this stuff, right, not to click on it. But if you don't understand that stuff, that's a big data privacy issue, because one person that clicks that and we don't catch it, that's a big data privacy issue and a cyber issue. So we've got to help people on the journey on that. But we've got, fundamentally, we're building the technology, so we're making sure our data is private, secure, and I think most importantly, ethical as well in the way we're using our data, because there's going to be concerns for our residents about how we're using our data. Is AI making decisions about one of our residents? Well, knows the answer. It will help us make the decision, but fundamentally we've always got a human intervention on the end of any decision that's made. But that's not understood by everybody. And as an organisation, we need to understand that much better, and our officers need to understand that better. So we're on a journey over a period of time on doing that. My account, it's interesting. My account's okay. It's not perfect, right? And it doesn't cover as many services. It's single sign-on mostly, but you're still bouncing around under the bonnet between lots of different applications, and if you're smart enough you can understand that you're bouncing around between different systems, so you don't get a seamless view, and you don't have a perfect dashboard of the things you need to use, and ultimately it's not as good experience as it needs to be compared to some of the other account specific things you'll have, where you'll have facial recognition or you'll put your fingerprint on and you've got your customer account there ready for you, and it's got the things you need. It's not quite there at the moment, and there's some of the improvements you've seen in the presentation, how we're reviewing how we get that seamless customer experience, because again, people want that customer experience from a council that's no different than they get on the things that they're from shopping or whatever they're buying or whatever entertainment is. So we want to have that seamless customer experience, and we know we need to improve on My Account, or replacement of My Account moving forward. And the feedback loop when it goes into the back office and with our officers is really, really important. And through having invested in a CRM, we want to be able to make sure that we're understanding our residents and we have that feedback loop, and our officers are having better information than they do at the moment about the people that they're serving and the people that contact us, because at the moment that's not as effective or as live. Back to the councillor's previous question, is that's not as intuitive or live as we'd like it to be. So when we've got a resident that's got a problem, we should be harnessing technology to go back into the council to see who can solve that person's problem with a good understanding of who that resident is, what their previous needs have been, something about the resident from their demography, social mobility, all the kind of things that help us understand that resident, some of the sentiment analysis, so are they angry, are they happy with the call, but also going back into the office with the officers that help them most and having that feedback loop to understand how we can better support them. And on that feedback loop point of view, a lot of that's driven by data actually. It's not just the customer contact, it's understanding how we can better support people by understanding the needs of not just that person, but the needs of that area, that cohort of people. And the more we can harness that feedback, the more we can harness that data, the better we can help people before they need our help. And that's what I'm most passionate about, is I don't want people to be disadvantaged. I don't want people to need our help. I want to help people before they need our help. And that's predictive analytics. That's understanding the data we have. And that's not just having the data from a kind of empirical point of view, some of that softer data. So we need to combine those kind of qualitative, quantitative, those objective and subjective data measures to provide that rounded picture of residents and us, our services, and us as an organisation to be able to better support people. And we're not quite there yet at the moment. We don't have that feedback loop. We don't have those data sources that sit together, but we're accelerating that journey really quickly, and we will improve our customer experience over time. And also on the feedback loop part is we need to make sure our officers better use the technology that they've got to be able to utilise that. So whether they're out on the field, So they're using a mobile device to understand that person's situation, whether they're in the back office, understanding how we're designing services in the future if you're a manager, whether that is understanding the customer query straight away so we can understand that missed bin, we can geocode it, we know where it is, it goes straight to the truck and we go and sort it out straight away. Those things should be seamless, they should be easy, but that requires investment, requires learning, development, and a better construct of our data. But we're getting there, and you talked about risk, and I think that's a really important point, is we're mitigating risk by learning from others, and it's a really important, and you talked about investment as well. We're making better investments now in our digital data and technology, actually because we've got technology debt. Actually, we're increasing the pace of change because we're learning from others, we're taking things from others, and we're copying people. And I know that sounds a little bit lazy as Chief Digital and Information Officer, but we're taking what good practice out there. We've learned from people's mistakes because they've already made them, so we won't make those mistakes. And things like a business case to do something, things like an application to do something, 80% is pretty much out the box now, and we configure it a little bit to Hillingdon, a little bit to our own organisation, a little bit more to our residents, but actually it's a good investment at the moment to invest in the things we're investing in, and that de-risks lots of our investment, and it de-risks, so that gives us the opportunity to move more forward on some more of those cutting edge technologies. So we're taking some of the basics and then moving forward on the cutting edge, and taking away the risk of investment, but also taking the risk of not having good customer satisfaction, because we know what good customer satisfaction is like, because we've looked at other places elsewhere, we've worked with those vendors that have done it before, and we know what we're going to get for what we're paying, and therefore we're de-risking investment, and we're de-risking having a not as good customer experience, because at the end of all of this, we want to improve customer experience, we want to save money, and we want to make a real difference to people's lives. All those three things are achievable, and we've got a pragmatic investment programme over the next 3 years, but we need to revisit on a quarterly, monthly basis, because technology is moving so quickly, and we're learning all the time, and ever more so with AI, of learning from local authorities that are doing more than we are at the moment. So we're working with some of our neighbours that have got some of the things. Let me give one example of, I talked a little bit about FOIs. FOIs cost us a council a lot of money. We have a lot of FOIs at the moment. Actually, a lot of councils have put the AI engine onto FOIs. So that will strip away 80% of the resource by having the language model that understands how AI can go and look for some of those answers. Then we can start publishing some of those answers. So actually we can go, no, the answer's there, go and look on our website. So we're learning from the councils that have done some of this already, taking it, nicking it, changing it, and then putting our investment in there. And that's the real kind of way we're trying to work as a sector to de-risk some of the things we're doing. So I think we've got a really exciting future, and hopefully that answered your questions.
All right, thank you. I noticed the time, and I suspect, well, no, more than suspect, I know that we'll invite you back another day, and we can go into more detail. But I'll take one more question, if anybody has got one more question. No, okay, brilliant. Hello, Councillor Manager.
Thank you, Chairman. Matthew, just going back to what I actually asked earlier this evening and addressing your point around failure demand, has any consideration been given to almost like training for residents? So if like a new feature is like released by the council, you can now do this. You almost like have like Joe Blogs from Ickenham and South Harefield demoing it. And the reason I say this is like a friend of mine bought a flat pack desk from IKEA over the weekend. He didn't look at the instructions. He just went to YouTube and somebody showed them how to do it. So it's much easier than trying to work it out for yourself. So again, just to address what you raised before, I'll be doing that. Is there something we could do? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, great point. And we're not doing it at the moment, right? And that's absolutely what we'll be doing in the future is again, when we talk about underinvestment, we haven't invested enough about communicating some of the things with our residents. We haven't engaged them well enough, and we want to produce, not just for residents actually, for our own officers, is to help people to be able to use some of the things we've got, and also co-design things with people, so actually involve people in being able to create those things ourselves. And we know also from kind of, use a good example of the kind of how demographics and how skills are changing over time, is people want those sort of things, the videos, the easy access guides, to be able to show them how to do things. And we perhaps have had more aged approaches in Hillingdon Council about how we're communicating with people, so we're often reliant on paper-based media, and that's costly, whereas actually people want videos on their phone to show them how to do things. And like a missed bin's quite a good example, right, is we should be showing people how to report a missed bin, communicating with them, showing it online, but also showing them a video. And that's part of our journey about how we want to embed those changes, because fundamentally, to do that shift from, we want the people that can do stuff to be able to do stuff. But they're not going to magically do it if we don't show them how to do it, or don't tell them, or don't engage them in how to do it. So we need to do much better in our communication and engagement. And I know that the Cabinet have picked that up as a real example of what we need to do better at as an organisation, and what I need to do better as my team is to show how we do things. But that's for officers as well. So ever more so in the use of AI. Hopefully I haven't talked too much about AI, but for example, producing videos, guides, helping people to use the technology that they've got. You have really good laptops. We have really good laptops and really good kit as an organisation. People use about 10% of the ability of our machines at the moment, right? So we need to help people to be able to do that. And people perhaps don't use some of the good stuff we do actually have on our website, but we need to point them in the right direction. And our website is not as intuitive or not as easy to navigate as possible, so we need to be able to make it more dynamically driven so people can get stuff they wanted. But yeah, I really appreciate the feedback, because I can take it back and say the feedback that we've had is we should be doing more videos, more communicating and more engaging back out to our communities, because I'm passionate about about communicating and working with people to drive us forward, because we can't do it as an organisation ourselves. We have to be more outward in our communities. We have to be talking to people more. We have to be engaging more. And back to the previous question, we have to be taking more feedback and learning from that feedback and improving things as they go. So I appreciate the feedback of this committee, because it's kind of exactly what I want to hear. So I can take that back and refine my plans and promote them in that way. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, I look forward to Councillor Mathers and I doing YouTube demonstrations about how to work the technology. If we can do it, anyone can. That's the strat. If we can do it, anyone can. Matthew, thank you very much. It was absolutely fascinating and really informative in a really concentrated way. We will definitely have you back, as I'm sure you'll know. It was interesting. I was looking at the responsibilities in terms of Cabinet responsibilities as far as you're concerned, and it's the leader of the Cabinet, corporate services, and the Cabinet member for finance, which is exactly what our responsibilities are. So we will be in contact with you and have you back for various issues, either in the broad sense or just keeping up, or dealing with detailed individual detailed matters. But I can pretty confidently say one thing, that we've got with you someone who not only knows what they're talking about, but is very passionate about it and getting us to the right place. So thank you very much indeed. Thank you. All right, we move on to the next item, both of which are to a large extent to note, I think, Cabinet Forward Plan and then the work programme. Liz?
Yes, Chair. As you say, it's just really for noting, unless members have any comments on either. Yes, Councillor Mathers has, I believe.
Right, Chair. Just on the work programme, we mentioned cybersecurity and data governance. Not for now, because I know loads of work's been going on, but maybe in the future we could look at those two areas, particularly around risk management. I think that's quite important for us to support.
Yeah, I think that, it was quite interesting what Matthew was saying towards the end. All of this is great, and we want to be heavily involved, obviously, and get it right across a lot of different things. A lot of people, members of the public, residents, will also share that desire, but at the back of their minds, they will be thinking and concerned about security. And I suppose the advancements that we look for and the use of technology that we look for is only as good, in one sense, as our ability to keep it secure. And you mentioned that one instance. Okay, so, you know, especially at this time of year, you get sent electronic documents to sign. You know you're going to get sent electronic documents to sign. Most of the time I would look at them and think, well, okay, I know I knew this was coming. It's come from the right place. I have no reason to question it, and yet I probably should. But I know that, you know, because of the time of year, my accountants are going to be sending me. In the old days, they send me a piece of paper and a little tag and sign here. But you get the document. So, and you just, I suppose in some ways, you kind of assume that because it's from the right place, you think, and because it asks you to sign it, and because you know you're going to have to sign something, you do. Very often people don't know that they're being attacked, as it were. The golden rule is if you don't know it, don't open it, I know. But at the same time, things have moved so fast, and different methods of communication have moved so fast. So I suppose with the same enthusiasm and the same depth of knowledge and the same commitment to resident and member experience, I think we are assured, but we want to be public assured, I suppose, that the level of security is such that we're not going to get rolled over by those who would want to harm us. And therefore a level of security, certainly of the force of big companies and government departments and all that sort of stuff. I know the joke is that they get breached, but and probably everything that we come up with or that we buy in or whatever somebody somewhere is working on breaching it anyway. But at the same time, part and parcel of our communication has got to be assurance to our residents that going down this track, and it may be they're used to this at their work or any other experience, but nevertheless, going down this track is going to be secure and safe to use. And maybe that's as big a project as the actual project itself. So really, with that comment, we'll end it there unless you've got something to say about that.
Yeah, I'm happy to do a piece on cybersecurity. In our corporate risk register, it's one of our key strategic risks, as it is in most organisations at the moment. We take it very seriously. I've got a really great team that do cybersecurity, but we're also looking. We're going to be working with the Local Government Association to be doing a Cyber 360, so that's a 360 view of our organisation around cybersecurity. So I suggest once we've gone through that, and that's members as well as officers, and that's part of that is training for members on cybersecurity, because it's the accountability and responsibility of everyone in the organisation. We're looking to do a piece on that moving forward, given some of the cybersecurity issues that I've talked about, and it's getting more sophisticated, it's more difficult, and it is a really important area for us as a council. So happy to come back to this committee. I suggest we do it post doing the Cyber 360, and then out the back of that, the idea is to be open and transparent on what our improvement plan is moving forward, so we can bring that back to committee for you to be part of that improvement journey.
Certainly, we were talking about having reviews in terms of the digital journey and so forth, but I think it might be wise for us to pick up on individual topics, but the bigger review that we were talking about previously, maybe give time for Matthew's team to bed in more and get the project up and running, and then have a bit of a review then, and then be able to say to Cabinet, right, this is where we are, this is what's going on. But I think it's a good idea to have a look at the security side, and we'll arrange for you to come back on that, and maybe Councillor Mathers and I will talk offline about the sort of areas in detail. All right, thank you very much. That's great. Well, if anybody has got any further questions on those two last topics of the forward plan and work programme, and if you don't, I'll close the meeting and thank you all very much.